Hi, everybody. I'm Traven Rice, the arts and culture editor for The Lowdown, and this is the Lowdown Culture Cast. And we're talking to all different types of downtown culture changers. And today I'm excited to talk to a couple of people who are about to open a show in the neighborhood here called Your Faithful Reader. And here with me today is director Miriam Wasmund and member and performer Liz Dutton. And the show was developed by Miriam Wasmund, and it merges the worlds of acting and dance with real live letters that people write into you.
That's right.
So participants were mailed writing prompts, suggestions of letters that they want to write to other people that they know or don't know, or to themselves, or to their most beloved objects. And then you kind of, my understanding, you'll have to please tell us more about it, is you sort through it, and then a company of actors and dancers and creatives bring it to life in a performance. So tell us, is that the process?
That is pretty much the process. It's pretty straightforward in that regard. We don't have a ton of rules around or guidelines around what people submit, but we reach out to our community, and sometimes people need prompts, sometimes they don't, but writing prompts are always available for people. And we ask them to submit letters, and usually we always have ongoing, like, rolling submissions, but we often have some sort of deadline coming up to prepare for a new show or a new workshop. And that's just what happens. People send them in. I can tell you the first time I ever made that request, I actually did get mailed in letters. We've streamlined it a little bit since then, because it was a lot of me having to transcribe stuff after that one. But it's really magical as the person who gets to see those letters often first, to receive that much trust in letter form. So,
and this is the fourth year that you've put on this performance?
We've actually been around since 2019. So we're actually going into our sixth year. This is our fourth, like, fully realized iteration. So, like, our fully evening length show.
Okay. So how did the idea come about? How did this get started?
Well, I have been a creator and, like, maker of dance, primarily dance, and collaborative dance theater for a very long time. We can go multiple decades without fully dating myself. And I had been on that journey for a really long time here in New York City. And I hit a roadblock along the way, and that roadblock was a lot of significant loss. Mm-hmm. My brother passed away. And then the following year, almost to the day, my mother passed away. And so in that time, like, my creative energy and ability to make work took a back seat, right? Understandably so, I'm sure. And then as I was kind of, like, in a haze, and I think facing the questions that, like, a lot of creators and performers face along the way of, like, what's next? How am I gonna reimagine this life that I was living when so much of my life had changed? I very serendipitously received a space grant to make work.
What's a space grant?
A space grant is when you have either applied or for different New York City spaces, or could be anywhere really. But it's like an artist grant to make work inside of a space. And I got specifically theater stage space. Mm-hmm. And that was at a theater in Williamsburg, actually. And then with that, it was kind of like the seed I needed to start to create and reimagine again. And right around that time, I was actually missing exchanging letters with my family who had passed away. So in, like, a wild act of, like, reaching out to community, I said, hey, is there any chance some of my community friends who consider themselves writers would send me some letters? I'm kind of missing some letters. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened. And I got, like, a ton of letters. And So I gathered a group of performers, and our very first read-through, actually, it wasn't all performers. It was writers and community friends, people who were interested in that kind of shared experience. And we all sat down and had a read-through of these beautiful letters of all varieties, including inanimate objects, like somebody wrote a letter to their bathroom ceiling heater. It was hilarious. And we just got together and decided that it shouldn't stop there. And so knowing I had the space grant, and now I had this community, and now I had this pile of letters, some of which were actively handwritten, we started getting to work to put it all together.
And your background is dance, you said. So you were trained at Alvin Ailey, is that right?
That's right.
And then
many decades ago as a dress.
Then was there theater training or?
I've had some theater training along the way, but not to the extent of so many of our performers. But, I think Liz probably can attest to this. I often kind of combatively take the term director. I think of myself a little bit more as an organizer or a curator, with the ability to bring the right group of people together, the material together, and then to hopefully foster enough trust amongst everyone to create this show as it needs to be. And then ultimately I will lay down the law if I need to.
But it sounds like it's also choreographed.
Yes, yeah.
So to speak.
Yeah, so it is choreographed, and that's probably where my biggest seed of inspiration will come from, is from the actual dance aspect. But then, trying to, I think the way in which people absorb stories is different. Everyone needs different cues and textures, and some people respond to movement, and some people respond to voices, and some people respond to art, and just all the different mediums that we can work in. So I find creating a show that does try to infuse all these different mediums is a way to reach more people.
So Liz, how did you get involved?
Well, I was introduced to Miriam a couple of years ago by another company member, and he said, I'm doing this show, you have to come see it. And I went and saw, I think it was in Williamsburg in 2023, and I came and I just said, I have to meet this person, I have to be involved with this group, it's just amazing. It's such a cathartic experience as an audience member and also as a company member and a performer, because I'm not a dancer. I have some movement background, but, to watch some of the dancers perform these beautiful pieces and what Miriam has choreographed, which is just beautiful, it's just really inspiring. And it's very different from any other theater I've ever done. It's very collaborative. We all get together and we read the letters at the beginning of the season, and we talk about them, and we, figure out what resonates with us, and we mold these letters throughout the season, and some of them start out one way and then they grow into something completely different. And it's just a really wonderful creative output. And it's just really rewarding.
So how do you decide which letters to use and to work with?
That definitely comes from, the crux of that comes from the read-through. There's so many ways to touch on this. I apologize. I'll compile all the letters that we receive for this last season, actually, or the spring of 24. We'd received more letters than we'd actually ever received before, which was a really wonderful problem to have, but challenging in that regard, because it's harder to pick from all of these amazing letters. And again, all of this trust that people have given you. The one very few guidelines that we have when writing the letters is that everybody has to be willing to let it go, because you have to accept that your letter might be turned into dance, or you have to accept that your letter might be spliced in with other letters, or we could take a fragment of it, or what have you. Or like we all have, as a writer, we all have like a set intention, but maybe that intention is seen differently by the group of people who are reading it. But I feel like our company has like a pretty, and usually we invite all sorts of people for the read through too. So it's largely performers who are, going to be in the show, but writers who have participated, past performers. We get a good chunk of readers from all walks of lives. It's like a diverse body of people. And without any names attached to the letters, we just sit down and read. And, we kind of things bubble to the top in the conversations we're having, in the ways in which people light up when they're reading something, or, there's a lot of instances when a whole room of people has started crying. That might be one that feels called to for everyone. And also the collection of people we have, too. I think this is an important component for me, for our company, is that we have a lot of people who are professional performers, but we also have people who, we all have day jobs, or we have different life branches that we're working on. There are people who have families and people who are constantly auditioning, like this really good breadth of folks. And part of the reason we want to make that open in that regard is because I think it represents more of a real slice of humanity, when you're not always the person with the performer hat, or, And so with that kind of as best crafted slice of humanity as we have, we kind of just pick letters, and it just kind of comes back out organically.
Yeah. That's so interesting that you don't know the names of the people. You do.
We do. And so every writer is always credited, but in the read through, we just keep them anonymous, so that if there are writers in the room, we can talk about it openly without anybody, worrying about stepping on, feelings and anything like that.
I'm just so interested in that, because I wonder if the character of the person that's writing it is imagined differently if you know their name or not, or you know what I mean, if you know the gender, for example, or if you know what I mean, if it changes things or not.
I think that's true. It does, and it can, or has the potential to. I think also some of those things are obvious, or there are also instances where we, a couple of seasons, I think our second full-length show, we had this beautiful letter written from the perspective of a father, and the writer is, we knew the writer was a Black man, and he was talking about this letter to his son, and we wanted to make sure that authenticity stayed true to that written piece of work, because it was really important to reflect that story accurately. And then there are letters that have more breath to, maybe they're more ethereal, or they're talking about a bathroom ceiling heater. They can really then take on any character, So, of course, always trying to do the writing justice, and also open the door for creative exploration.
Yeah. So how long does each one last about? Letters aren't usually that long, right?
You'd be surprised what people can write.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on the letter, and we have pieces that are long, and we have one-line letters too that we sprinkle throughout the show.
Nice.
So there's
like a postcard.
Exactly. Yeah. And so it just depends on what we get, and we just craft the show around that. And one of the other things too that's really interesting about the letter submissions, and when we sit down and look at everything, is that we start to see patterns of themes about these letters. And then we can sort of craft, I think these letters should go back to back in the show because they center around the theme of identity, for example, or this centers around the theme of family. And that's also just a really interesting part of the collaboration and the process. And it's really interesting to see, what type of letters we get each year. And you would think that they just come from anybody who wants to submit something. There's no, again, if there's a prompt, that doesn't have to be. And then all of a sudden we're like, wow, we have all of these letters that talk about this particular topic, and it's really cool.
Something I think we've seen over the past couple of years, it gives me a lot of hope. Outside of the hope for our theater company, but is a hope for the track that maybe people are going or humans are going, that when we're looking for something to have light with, is that we've noticed that when people come to shows, it seems to give them the permission they didn't know they needed to write the thing that is on their heart, And so while you might think sometimes that your story won't touch someone, or that your story is your story, and of course it is your story, but you might think that no one will get it, or that it's too heavy, or it's too dark, or other people have harder things to deal with, then you go and you see somebody who's like bravely shared a story, and you see some aspect of yourself in it, or you're have so much admiration for the bravery to share that story that ignites something in people. And I think that is one of the greatest gifts for me as this, director or producer or curator or whatever, is that it's opened up this doorway for other people to have a cathartic experience, or experience maybe they didn't know they needed. And it kind of gives you like a little bit of the proof that there's like healing in making art, or there's growing in making art. And that art doesn't have to always be perfect, but that they can still be so human and authentic and worthy because it offers somebody some sort of light they needed.
That's wonderful.
I'm wildly biased, but...
No, I think that's amazing. So, I mean, it makes perfect sense to me, but that they would, so it's sort of like it's like a spiral. Like they come and see it, and then they're like, wait, I want to write something.
Yeah.
And then they go into how they want to write about their stories, and then it keeps going and going.
We have a story that came about this past year, and it's a little bit of like the silver lining of losing. We lost our space last minute this past fall after we had done a very like a sold out run in the spring. And so there was a person at that show who got inspired to write a letter. And they wrote a letter that was kind of challenging. And they were, they let it go and they shared it with us. And our cast and crew of people who were in that, read through, that letter bubbled up to the top and it became a performance piece. And so when we had to pivot in September, we had an event space here on the Lower East Side that had the ability to live stream it. So we had a video of that live stream. And so that writer had come. She loved the way the piece was delivered, and she was over the moon with the performer who chose to, was in that piece. And they developed quite a connection, which was really lovely, and had a lot of shared background experience. But then having that video, she was able to go and share that with family members that she was struggling to tell and share her story with. And that became a really healing and cathartic experience for that writer. And she in turn let us know. And, that's one of those moments of even if you touch one person, it's meaningful.
Yeah.
And now her and her family members that she was, had a hard time telling the story to beforehand, have a better connection and have done some healing. And again, I am so grateful that we were able to help facilitate that in even the smallest way.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's great. Yeah. And so what would a person who doesn't know about it or hasn't written the letter expect to see if they came to the show?
Well, it's a fully realized show with dance and music and stories about the whole human experience. Some are really, really funny. A lot of the themes of this particular show revolve around identity and what it's like to be a person living in this sort of crazy circus of a world that we're in right now. And so one of the other things that we encourage is that people can come to this type of show for a sense of community, because a lot of people are sort of stuck and they don't know what to be thinking right now. And it's a scary place to be, this world that we're in. And, you can hear what other people are struggling with and what other people are laughing at and about. And, just find that community with other like-minded people. And I think it's good to be in a space with other people right now.
I couldn't agree more. I totally agree. I think it's a really important thing right now to be in a space with other humans, not online, and
Yes.
with human contact and with the community for sure. So I'm a big fan of that.
I think something that has come up for us in discussing like the way our show has developed in the past is that like sometimes we do get challenging letters, and people might see that as dark or heavy or hard, but I think there's so much hope in sharing. I think the bravery behind the act of wanting to keep going, the wanting to share your story is in itself like a way to thrive. Mm-hmm. And so that just in itself is there's so much light in that. There's so much truth in that. We're made infinitely lighter and more woven together by just being honest and being brave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. Instead of keeping it to yourself or thinking it's not important or trying to hide it or pretending everything's fine.
Yeah.
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 So give us the details of the show. I know it's coming up really soon.
January 30th to February 2nd at Teatro Latea, which is here on the Lower East Side. Beautiful space, big community space.
At the Clemente.
Yeah, in the
Yes.
Clemente
On
building.
Norfolk.
Suffolk. Yeah, Suffolk.
It's on Suffolk.
Yeah.
And what time?
We have 5 shows. All the Thursday, Friday, Saturday evening shows are all at 7 p.m. There's a 2 p.m. matinee on Saturday, and then there's a 6 p.m. Sunday show, so we'll get you home a little bit earlier if you have to work on Monday.
Okay, excellent. Anything else you want to add or share?
We just started an online merch shop that's super
right.
fun. It's all inspired by our designer who does our beautiful website and all of our, anytime you see a sign or a postcard from us, our designer Nick Polifrone does all of that wonderful work. And he created this beautiful pop-up merch shop that all of the items on it are inspired by or quotes from actual shows. And they all are a really good way to, get involved and help support independent theater by, purchasing something. And also, we would just say, fight the patriarchy, So, it speaks to, if that speaks to you,
Amen.
then if that speaks to you, then it is worth a checkout. If you are wearing something like that and I see you in public, I might just start crying or hug you, so be warned. But yeah, we're really excited about all the opportunities coming our way.
Great. Well, I wish you the very best of luck with it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for
you
coming
so
in.
much.
Thank you so much.